For years, Orson Krennic searched for the genius Galen Erso, at last finding him on Lamu in 13 BBY, forcibly recruiting him back into the Empire. Having feared this day might come, the Ersos had a backup plan to escape to a designated area where their old friend Saw Gerrera would find them. But Galen chose to stay behind, distracting Imperial forces while his wife and daughter escaped. But Lyra Erso refused to leave her husband, sending her daughter to the evacuation point alone, while she confronted Krennic with a blaster. Unfortunately, she was only able to shoot him in the shoulder before she was taken out by Imperial death troopers. Galen, distraught at witnessing his wife's death, was taken into custody, but his daughter was able to escape, raised as a member of Saw Gerrera's rebel cell, fighting to end the tyranny of the Empire. For 8 years they traveled together, until her identity as the daughter of Galen Erso began to threaten the rebels, and so Saw left Jyn behind, confident she could survive on her own. During his time with the Empire, Galen realized they were determined to build the mobile battle station with or without his assistance, and so became heavily involved in the project in order to slow its progress as much as possible. For 13 years, he worked steadily, becoming integral to the superweapons construction, and coming up with a plan to build a fatal flaw into the project's design, a detail so small and tucked away within the vast complexity of the weapon, no one would be able to find it unless told where to look. And so, as the Death Star neared completion, he recruited an Imperial pilot named Bodhi Rook, convincing him to change allegiances, then sending him with a message for the Rebel Alliance and his daughter. On Galen's instructions, the pilot delivered the message to Saw Gerrera and his rebel cell, located on the moon Jedha. The Rebel Alliance then learned of the message and decided to track down Jyn Erso, recruiting her to meet with Saw and discover the truth about the message supposedly sent from her father. And so the Alliance sent a team to rescue Jyn from Imperial incarceration, as she was serving a sentence of 20 years for her attempt to blow up a ship on the planet Korulag in order to steal weapons from the world's petty dictator. Once freed, she traveled with the rebel officer Cassian Andor and his K2SO droid to Jedha, meeting a Force-sensitive warrior monk named Chirrut Emwe and an assassin named Baze Malbus, who brought them to Saw. Watching the hologram, Jyn learned that Galen had built a vulnerability in the Death Star's reactor, and that the structural plans could be found at an Imperial high-security databank on the planet Scarif. Unfortunately, the Empire had also made their way to Jedha, where Orson Krennic sought to demonstrate the Death Star's potential power to Wilhuff Tarkin, his hated rival and superior officer. The ancient moon had a long history of association with the Jedi and Force, home to a number of Force religions like the Disciples and Guardians of the Wills. Yet with the Empire occupying Jedha, its main city, Ni Jedha, became an active center of rebel activity, and with Saw Gerrera involved, was an ever-increasing threat. And so Krennic ordered the Death Star to fire upon the city, destroying everything in the area. Tarkin, pleased with the weapon's performance, decided it was at last time for him to assume command of the superweapon, robbing Krennic of the fruit of his labors. Krennic, desperate to regain his position, reached out to Darth Vader, hoping he might speak on his behalf to the Emperor, but was sorely mistaken, with Vader angered by his request, force-choking Krennic into submission. Upon the moon of Jedha, Jyn and her people were able to escape unharmed, but Saw Gerrera stayed behind, dying with the city. The Rebel Alliance then ordered Jyn and her team to track Galen Erso down, traveling to the planet of Edu, supposedly to extract him into rebel custody. But in truth, Cassian Andor was ordered to execute the man, hoping to stop him from completing his work on the Death Star. Yet Andor proved unable to pull the trigger, and with no word from the team, the Rebel Alliance feared the mission failed and so sent a strike team to bomb the area. Galen was killed in the fighting, but Jyn was able to find and speak to him one last time as he lay dying. They then fled the planet and returned to the rebel base on Yavin 4, where Jyn proposed a plan to travel to Scarif and steal the Death Star plans. But with her father's hologram destroyed on Jedha and no way to verify her story, she was met with skepticism and disbelief, with the Council unwilling to commit their resources to the mission. Jyn, refusing to accept their decision, met with Cassian Andor and other willing rebels, who then took a ship without authorization and identified themselves themselves as Rogue One before leaving for Scarif. Most of the team was sent to distract stormtroopers with a firefight, while Jin, Cassian, and K2SO made their way into the Imperial facility. However, Orson Krennic's Imperial forces were already present, as he suspected the information on Edu might be at risk, and so now found himself in the middle of an attack, adding his own forces to the fight. And while the Empire might have then wiped out the small group of attackers, they were soon joined by the Rebel fleet, which came to the aid of the Rogue One mission. Within the facility, K2SO sacrificed himself so the others might find the schematics, while Cassian Andor also stayed behind, giving Jin the chance to transmit the plans to the rebellion. Although Krennic attempted to stop her, he was shot down by Cassian Andor, who re-emerged just in time. Wilhuff Tarkin, who had now arrived aboard the Death Star, chose to fire upon the main city, sacrificing Krennic and the Imperial base in order to destroy the rebel forces attacking and compromising their facilities. As a result, Jin and the rest of the Rogue One team died on the planet, but not before successfully completing their mission and transmitting the Death Star schematics to the rebel fleet. With no way to save those fighting on the planet, the rebel ships began to jump into hyperspace. But at the last moment, Darth Vader arrived, boarding the main rebel ship, and carved his way through their soldiers to find the man in possession of the Death Star schematics. Yet he arrived too late, as the last survivors made their way onto the waiting ship of young Princess Leia, tasked with taking the information to Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the last living Jedi, in the hope he might find a way to destroy the Death Star and defeat the Empire. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Red Priest Nemo, Joey Lady Phoenician, and Johannes the Juvenile. If you would like to help Civilization X, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and click on the links to see more.